When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best. They're not sending you. They're sending people that have lots of problems. They're bringing drugs. They're bringing crime. They're rapists. And some, I assume, are good people.
Some. We're still looking for the good people. There's a manhunt underway. We should dispatch the Department of Justice to find the good ones. They can't all just be a Maryland man, can they? I've got to say. How about the college professor who's here on a visa and enjoys child porn, and the Democrat Party enjoys his company. Amazing stuff. Also, the North Carolina incident, a mother and infant daughter kidnapped by illegal alien gangsters, the kidnapping in North Carolina. You'd think that at some point illegal aliens would start to earn a bad reputation. Fortunately for the gun-toting illegal alien gang members, the kidnappers and the murderers, they've got the Democrat Party here for them. So we've got that. And, yeah, the arrest of the professor on child pornography charges, he's in on a visa, too. It's a student visa. It's an educational visa, like Mahmoud Khalil, who was calling for a global intifada and the destruction of Western civilization. And the Democrats like, hey, we are too. That's us. That sounds like us. Also, you see Ilhan Omar, speaking of the jihad and the extermination of the Jewish people, Democrat Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who, were it not for the United States taking in her family as refugees when she was a small child, there would be black scorpions crawling over her sun-bleached bones in the desert sands of Somalia. And now she's here in the United States, and she's a member of the House of Representatives because we're very open-minded. Sometimes you can be so open-minded that your brain falls out, and this is a pretty good example of that. Do you see what Ilhan Omar told a very polite reporter from the Daily Caller, who had a very civil and an adult question for the Congresswoman? And I've got to say that she was not as polite as she should be. I think she's a jihadi. She's un-American. She's anti-American. And maybe we should return her to her homeland. And the black scorpions crawling over her sun-bleached bones might be in her future after all. Remarkable stuff. Ilhan Omar, Democrat in good standing with the Democrat Party. Uncivilized, uncivil, a left-wing radical extremist, and trolling the Capitol grounds when a news reporter asked her a question. And I commented last night on my television show on the Newsmax channel that the gang they're wearing their chadors, the Muslim headgear, and I was like, they got everything but the AK-47s. These people, the way that they behave is so profoundly third world, so gutter. That really she should be expelled from the country, not just from the Congress, but from the country. I guess she's got citizenship, so maybe we'll just give her to El Salvador. Give Ilhan Omar to El Salvador. What she said, I can't even quote what she said because there's a bad word in there, and this is a friendly radio broadcast. Remarkable stuff. Ilhan Omar. And then when she was challenged about it, she tripled down and came back with her third world gutter vulgarity and spewed more venom because that's who Democrats are. When they're not firebombing the Jews, they're just torching civilization because, like so many Democrats, you saw the Democrat that firebombed the Teslas, $100,000 in damage with Molotov cocktails, and he was released from jail by a Democrat because they want to have more bomb-throwing left-wing radical lunatics loose on the streets, and they don't recognize that crime is crime. Like Judge Dugan in Milwaukee. She's got a legal team that O.J. Simpson would envy, if he were alive to envy a legal team. It's quite remarkable, and I guess people are raising money for her because she's anti-American, un-American, anti-judicial. She should be anti-law, anti-order. individually, not just anti-law and order, but she's also as a standalone anti-law, and she's anti-order. She's a Democrat. She might be out firebombing things soon herself based on her behavior. Remarkable. Speaking of the Democrat Party's love of murder, they now, Luigi Mangione, they all want their daughters to date Luigi Mangione, right? And now Luigi Mangione, because the Democrats love murder, the left loves murder so much, nobody's better at it than they are. It's really the only thing they're good at is murder. And now they're warming up on firebombing and self-immolation. They enjoy self-immolation as well. But Luigi Mangione, they've got a musical. It's a musical. Like, High on the Hill, there's a lonely goat herd, lehi-oda, lehi-oda, lehi-hoo, which is, of course, the Osama bin Laden song. It is from The Sound of Music, the Osama bin Laden. So we for years we played High on a Hill, there's a lonely goat herd as our Osama bin Laden music before a great American shot and killed him, Rob O'Neill. I've had beers with him, a great American, great guy. But now the Democrats have a musical. They should really have an Osama bin Laden musical, too. But they have they probably do. They have a Luigi Mangione musical, and it's set to debut next month. They're very excited about it. In fact, Democrats are so excited about it that it's scheduled for a run, many nights, not just one night, at a theater naturally in San Francisco where everyone on the sidewalk is dead, being picked apart by vultures because the Democrats are the vultures. Amazing. It's, like the guy that died on the New York City subway train before a Democrat robbed him by rifling through all of his pockets. And then, of course, he sexually assaulted him upstairs, and then he sexually assaulted him downstairs. And then another New York City subway passenger, after the necrophiliac rapist and thief left the car, another Democrat walked over and tried to rob the dead body because that's what Democrats do now. That's the Democrat Party is not very democratic at all. Although, the robbery and everything else was administered equally, I suppose you could say. But now Luigi Mangione musical in San Francisco, set to debut next month, and the tickets went on sale, and boom, lickety-split. They sold out. Not just for one night, but for every night of the run. It reminds me that every time John Hinckley, who shot President Trump and James Brady and Thomas Delahanty and Tim McCarthy on that day at the Hilton Hotel in Washington, and he's out on the loose, too, because Democrats want him out on the loose. And John Hinckley is out there. He allegedly plays a guitar, and he sets up concert dates, and Democrats buy all the tickets every time. They sell out immediately, the John Hinckley guitar concert tickets, and John Hinckley sells T-shirts online, and he's complained on the Internet that he can't keep them in stock because Democrats keep buying them. The Democrat Party, let's face it, Lee Harvey Oswald was a Democrat. I know he was a communist, but that makes him a Democrat, too. Speaking of Democrats and communists and playing guitar, there is a woman named Sheryl Crow. Do you know this woman, Sheryl Crow? She's a songstress, and left-winger, naturally. She fled California for civilization, kind of, and she, brings the opposite of civilization with her. But she had a Tesla because she's saving the world and slowing the rise of the ocean. But then she decided she had to sell the Tesla because she's a political radical, a fanatic. She loves Luigi Mangione, but not Elon Musk, just like the whole Democrat Party. And she's now the latest update is reveals an armed man broke onto her property. That's not like breaking into your house. You don't break onto someone's property usually, but after selling her Tesla, and she felt very afraid, but very, very afraid. But the funny part of the story, that's not the funny part of the story. The funny part of the story is what Sheryl Crow had to say and what she does with her free time. Wait till you hear what Sheryl Crow does with her free time. If you're an elected official, a Republican at least, and you're around Sheryl Crow, then there's something going on there. There's definitely something going on. So we've got that Sheryl Crow, fled California, and now she's living in the outside world that's not California. Amazing stuff. These people. Nashville, Tennessee. That's but she's not in Nashville. She has to live out in the wilderness because She's so popular. We're back most stuff. But what do you hear what she does with her time? Because that's great. Doge. Doge is saving us tens of billions of dollars, and the Democrats are very angry about that. They want to bring the tens of billions of dollars to the Capitol with a bulldozer. They want to set it on fire and doze it around all over the place like the Socialist Workers' Party during the Holocaust. That's sort of their thing. And because Doge, Elon Musk and Doge members sat down with Jesse Waters, the Fox News Channel, last night, and some fun stuff from them, smart people. Naturally, as you might expect, why would Elon Musk hang out with a bunch of morons? I'm guessing none of them vote Democrat because of the high IQ quotient. But just dragging like some of the stuff they found, 3 million of our hard-earned taxpayer dollars were allotted, of course, by the Democrats to support safe and inclusive work environments in Lesotho. Because they discovered that the work environments in Lesotho were not safe enough, and they were not inclusive enough. So they took 3 million of our tax dollars, and who was it? USAID or the State Department? No, it was the American Labor Department. Why would the Labor Department be giving $3 million to the kind of quasi-nation of Lesotho in Africa to create a more inclusive work environment? And the answer is mental illness. Correct answer, mental illness. Short answer is Democrats. Just amazing stuff. Also, this is wonderful, and boy, it's long overdue. President Trump, in an executive order, has ordered an end to federal funding for National Panhandler Radio, Panhandler Broadcasting System, and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, which is the umbrella organized crime outfit over NPR and PBS. But calling an end to the $500 million a year that we give to NPR, the Corporation for Public, and it's a propaganda outlet for the hardcore left Democrat Party, and they talk funny, too. Let's be honest, they talk funny. But Trump orders end to federal funding for NPR and PBS. This is the NPR story that I'm reading. That's their headline. And as you imagine, they might be on the brink of self-immolation, which I hope they record because we wouldn't want that to go. So President Trump signed an executive order Thursday directing the Corporation for Public Broadcasting's board of directors to cease federal funding for NPR and PBS, because the money goes to, again, the umbrella crime family, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the nation's primary public broadcaster. Trump contends that the news coverage by NPR and PBS contains a left-wing bias. That's funny, and they write that with a straight face at NPR. The federal funding for NPR and PBS is appropriated by Congress. And that's true, and obviously it's going to be challenged and more lawfare, and it is true, it is appropriated by Congress. But this gets the fight started anyway, and the fact that we use our tax dollars to fund this propaganda arm of the Democrat Party is completely absurd, and, I'm okay with that. Just give my radio network the same amount of money. Just give us $500 million, because we could use a sushi chef in here, couldn't we, Michael? Because at the NPR headquarters in Washington, they've got dining rooms and a sushi chef, and I assume everybody cross-dresses and chopping broccoli and doing all this. Pretty amazing stuff. But obviously it's left-wing propaganda. It's a front group for the Democrat Party, and now NPR has a 10,000-word story on how you got to save our funding because I just bought a gold Mercedes station wagon and a house in Northwest Washington, D.C., and I got to make my payments. And the taxpayer has to pick up the bill because I'm a propagandist for the Democrat Party. Isn't that amazing? And did you see James Carville? He doesn't want to live in a country that makes T-shirts. He doesn't want to be perceived as arrogant and elitist or anything, but he doesn't want to live in a country that makes He wants to have slave labor overseas, make it on the cheap, He's still experimenting with what you turn up when you drag a $100 bill through a trailer park. Amazing stuff. We should get some Luigi Mangione the musical tickets, shouldn't we? Democrats, mayhem, firebombs, child porn, gang members, the jihad, beep you from members of Congress. Just scratching the surface on what's coming up today on the Chris Plant Show. We are, of course, at 888-630-9625. Chris here with a list of things that none of us should trust. The Washington Post, the New York Times, anything on CNN. Here's a list of things that I do trust. The Washington Times. Support real journalism for just $1 a week at washingtontimes.com/Chris. We have body cam video of their hero, the wife-beating illegal alien Salvadoran gang member, when the police pulled him over while he was engaged in human trafficking, and the Democrats want their daughters to date him. Let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Ron, calling from West Virginia. Ronaldo, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Senor, it is always a pleasure to talk to you. I listen to your show late at night, and I'm picking you up right now early because I know that's when you're live. Okay, I did some numbers here. If it takes let's say there's 15 million illegal aliens in the country,
okay,
and the judges say they have to be granted all elements of due process of law.
Mm-hmm.
And let's say, for the sake of argument, it takes 2 weeks for each one.
Mm-hmm.
It would take one judge 576,923 years to grant all of them. But if you did, let's say, 760 district court judges, it would only take 759 years to grant all elements of due process of law for 15 million illegal aliens. That's contiguous 2 weeks. But everybody knows that it takes sometimes 15 weeks because they're granted leave and all sorts of things, like to sequester certain individuals and so forth. If it takes 15 weeks, it would take 2,277 years to grant all elements of due process of law to 15 million illegals. They basically eliminated all relief against illegal incursion on our country. And if they would just stop arresting them, because once they're arrested, it's a crime, and just simply pick them up and ask them what their status is, show me your papers, whatever you want to call it, and if they don't have the proper paperwork, give them the proper paperwork, put them on the gray dog, and send them packing back to where they came from.
The dog.
And that's the only way, sir?
The dog, riding the dog.
Yeah, riding the gray dog, man.
Yeah, man.
Yes, sir. Get peanuts and whatever it is they give people for the long distance ride back to Guadalajara, wherever the heck they came from.
Well, look, Ron, you know that the Democrats want to tie up the system, entangle the system, pin down the system. If we started paying off the national debt at $1 a second, it would take more than 1 million years to pay off the national debt of $36 trillion. The Democrats are here to destroy us, a fundamental transformation. And President Trump, he never stops. He gave the commencement address at the University of Alabama yesterday, and it was full of fun stuff. He talked about sports, women's sports being for women and girls' sports being for girls. And Democrats have a bunch of dudes running around dressed like ladies saying, no, I want to, and then I want to steal the girls' trophies because of the mental issues that they have. Speaking of which, Hope Walz, kind of a silly name, the daughter of Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, who is the man who would be vice president, but of course is not, thankfully. I'm signing the cross. And he's got a daughter named Hope. She posts videos of herself saying things that she thinks are intelligent things to say. And she posted another video of herself. She's quite fond of herself. And it's just crazy. She's talking about jogging, about running, right? And not running away from Kilmore Abrego Garcia, running away from MS-13, running away from illegal alien gang members or anything like that, not running from Hamas people who are chasing Jews down the street. She didn't run because she is not a Jew. See, I'd got it doing a little Hank Johnson there, a little Hank. And I've got to say that Hope Hope Walz posting a video, yet another video, inexplicably on Al Gore's amazing internet, because she's very concerned that maybe poor people can't jog. Poor people can't jog. I looked up when I was growing up, there was an African runner, a world-class runner named Kip Keino, and he grew up running barefoot. And that's what he was famous for. One of the things he was, that and running real fast. But he grew up running barefoot. But let's go to this person, because first of all, she's influenced by an influencer. They're all easily influenced by anybody that's walking by. Not a bright bunch. It could be public education. Maybe it's not. But there is a person that is called an influencer in the running world whose name is Kate Maxey, or Max, M-A-C-K-Z. Not a normal name. They all make things up. They don't live in normal land. Amazing stuff. And she, Kate Maxey, interviewed Caroline Leavitt at the White House, where the president lives.
Hey! How many miles are you running today?
No miles, because we're at the beautiful White House, but why don't I give you a tour? Let's do it. My name is Caroline Leavitt. I am from New Hampshire, and I am the White House press secretary, and this is the beautiful White House. We're currently walking on what we call Pebble Beach. This is where all of the press hang out.
Guys, we have to stop for a second and look at this. I can't believe you get to wake up and be here every single day.
I can't believe you get to wake up and be here every single day. And she's an influencer. And Kate Menda, now apparently this Kate Max person, she influences, because that's her job and her job title. It's what it says on her business card, influencer. At what? Running, whatever. It's stuff I do. Pretty amazing stuff. Now, let's go to Hope Walz. Hope Walz, W-A-L-Z, the governor's daughter. And she posts these incredibly arrogant videos on Al Gore's amazing internet. And she's very concerned that jogging might not be accessible to people if they're not white privileged people or something like that. Here is the governor's daughter, Hope Walz.
Running as an act is political. And you know who taught me that? Tim Walz. The first thing he told me when I was first getting into it in high school was that running is a privilege, and being a part of the running community is a privilege that not all people have access to. It is a privilege.
Running is political, and it's privilege. And who taught her that? Her idiot moron can't load a shotgun, didn't go to Iraq, even though he said he did, governor of Minnesota. Once great state, now a sad and tragic shell of its former self, because the left sunk their pointed teeth into the neck bone of the state and they've sucked out the lifeblood. But wait a minute. You know who taught me that? I'm not surprised. It's your idiot father. The apple has not fallen far from the tree. We got two generations of idiots right here. Isn't that amazing? But here she is. Her father informed her that running is political and it's a privilege. It's that most people can run. Am I wrong about that? I think most people can, but it's a privilege. But she needs some kind of a government program and funding for people to jog. It's, you can go to the beach and run barefoot. You can find a grassy knoll somewhere that God created, and you can run barefoot like Kip Keino did. But here is Hope Walz.
Whether it be you just having the time to run, access to funds to buy the gear, access to, healthy quality foods that fuel you as you're training and as you're running, access to, a safe, stable situation that allows you to be in a good mental state to be able to run. All of those things are hard to come by. And if you have them and are a part of the running community, that is a privilege.
That is you're talking about multiple things, so those would be a privilege, just semantically speaking. But you need a safe, stable place. Seems to me if you're an unstable place, you might be much more likely to run, doesn't it? If you're surrounded by MS-13 and they got machetes, that's not a safe, stable place, but running would be recommended, I think. That would be a good idea. You need the time. You got to have money for the gear, all right? So you need shoes. At least they're beneficial when you're running. You need food because, the gear, and you need food because if you don't have food, you might be laying on the ground saying, feed me, I need nutrition. I can't run because I'm not privileged. It's political. You have to feed me and give me gear and give me a safe and stable place. Otherwise, I won't be able to run. She's the governor's daughter in Minnesota. Every day is an IQ test, and she clearly fails the IQ test every single day. Isn't that amazing? But she's not done yet because, the politics of running that her father taught her about.
So I don't really understand how platforming and administration that cuts mental health services, cuts, funding and literal shipments to food banks, sending people away without due process, villainizing minorities, all of those things are preventing people from getting into the running community, which is what I thought Kate's platform was for. But it's also just damaging to society as a whole. We should not be normalizing these people.
Villainizing immigrants this is about running and what else, and money for programs. They're all empty shells of humanity. They're just extraordinary. These people are all mentally ill. She shouldn't be allowed to drive a car or fly on a plane. I don't think she's deportable, but we should take a look at that. She is, I ain't no senator's son. She is the governor's daughter, could become the governor's son any day now. Just amazing. You got to deplatform and got to have funding for gear, for running. Now, this is her getting ready to go out for a jog, apparently. And she has to go through this tortured communist struggle session about going out for a run. And she's the daughter of the governor of one of our 50 states. They're all mentally ill. They shouldn't be allowed to roam free. We're going to have to build a big, a San Diego. You ever been to the San Diego Zoo with the wild animal park for animals and stuff? We're going to need to build one of those for people, for Democrats, to keep them in. John Hinckley and those people, and Hope Walz, because they're all mental. All right, let's take a phone call. I've got a lot of President Trump to get to because of the big speech at Crimson Tide, Alabama, yesterday. Great stuff, and he had a lot of funny things to say, and the crowd was loving it, and they were laughing, having a great time. Democrats, they had 25,000 idiots sign a petition saying that I was thinking that they might not be able to run because they're not privileged enough. They're idiots. They're just unbelievable idiots. You couldn't be stupider if they went to school to become stupider. They should have a college-level course on becoming dumber. Well, maybe they do. That's what the Ivy League is for, perhaps. All right, let's go to the telephones, Michael. Let's go to Peter, calling from Houston, Texas. Houston, Texas. You got some humdinger members of Congress coming out of Houston, Texas, don't you, Peter?
That's right. Speaking of Sheila Jackson-Lee and, of course, Sylvester Turner, and that brings me to your guest here, Peter. He's one of the candidates that's actually running here for the open seat. So I am a Democrat, but I'm a Jewish Democrat. I would say I'm quite open-minded. My brain's not falling out, but I did have a question for you.
Uh-huh.
So as far as what I called on was NPR, of course. 1% of our budget. It's not going to harm us too much there, Chris. And for your open-minded liberals who listen to your program. And as far as my question for you is,
well, wait a minute. Just a point of clarification. You say it's 1% of our budget. What you're talking about, the NPR budget?
Yes, the NPR. We're national, like us. We're the citizens of the country. So national. Us who.
Everything with the word national on it is the citizens of the country. All right, but you're saying that NPR, only 1% of their budget is from taxpayer money.
Correct.
Okay,
so
well, then you're right. It'll be no skin off their nose at all, no problem at all. They're going to riot and burn things before the money's taken away. But where does the other 99% come from?
From our endowments, like banks and any other fair-minded company that can see the value of truth. I know we have two sets of truth these days, a conservative truth and a liberal truth, but they speak. So we got two sets of truth, so that leaves it up to the public to decide which truth that they're going to go with.
And banks,
go with the truth
and banks and corporations who give money to NPR. So it's the generosity of capitalists that that keep NPR afloat. And you say 99% of their money comes from donations from, you said, endowments from other generous donors. Is that correct?
That's my understanding. Hey, Chris?
I'm glad you called in. Let me say that. I'm happy that you called in, Peter, because most people that self-describe as Democrats these days are busy looting drugstores or firebombing Tesla dealerships or
just on my way to work,
shooting CEOs.
I listen to your program.
Oh, that's good. No, that's good. That's good. But you said you're Democrat and you're Jewish, and that makes no sense to me in 2025.
You would think so, Chris. However, I'm how you want to say it, like a new age. I come from a Jewish background, but I've been to Israel and to see what's happening there in Jerusalem. Like when you go there, the unity, and to go over when I was on the other side of Palestine in, let's say, Bethlehem, because my wife's Catholic, you get a real good perspective on really the openness of, say, the Palestinians. I know there are radicals on both sides, so we can't say, there's not a perfect society, but the people who I've met, they're actually quite open. They were very, welcoming us as Americans when we were there. And
there are a lot more radicals on one side who kill and kidnap and hold hostages and firebomb and self-detonate their explosive vests and, suicide attacks for mass murders. Of course, Democrats have had a lot of suicide attacks in the last few years, too. Shooting Steve Scalise and trying to mow down a baseball field of Republican members of Congress. Suicide attack, that was James Hodgkinson. I'm sure you know him well. President Trump was shot through the ear.
I don't know well, but it is all these facts are unfortunate, Chris, and
they are.
If we just had more of a civil discourse potentially in our country, and more like how when I grew up in the 70s, I can recall, like the 80s, more unity. Within our parties there was more unity. Us
You're
talking
right.
to one another, and that's why I'm going up to Congress. So I'd like to serve up there. Would be a unifier. So there's good people on both. Like quote President Trump, there are good people on both sides, and if we just unify under like common causes, I think a lot of what President Trump has some great ideas, like opening up lumber. That's my background, resource management within the national forest. Just think of all the wood that's just sitting vacant, dormant, that we can actually be put into good use. I'm more of the mind of biofuels. Actually, if I make it to Congress, one of my things I'll be putting money into is right here in our district is research into biofuels, because as you know, we have so many demands on, say, oil and gas. If we had another way to fuel our power plant.
So you're actually running. You're running for the House of Representatives.
I am, sir. I was a candidate. I'm Peter Filler. I'm the voice of the people. I ran against Dan Crenshaw. I fell short of my goal, and there's an open seat. So I'm running in this congressional district 18. I know it's a little bit taboo because it's historically, a black district, but I'm at least going to make an effort, put my best foot forward. There's other competitors, Christian Menifee, and our current county attorney.
So we have race-based congressional districts that are held by someone who has to be of a certain race.
Right. So I'm just trying to, at least make my pitch, that someone like myself, I'm an educator. My background's resource management. So I feel like I'm a good fit for the position because I've got all those skills. Yeah. Skill sets like unifier, visionary.
Listen,
work on the different committees.
You mentioned going to Israel and going to Jerusalem and then going to Bethlehem, and you called it Palestine. I think it is the West Bank you're referring to. Last time I was in Israel with my best girl, we were prohibited from going to Bethlehem because we were assured that we would be murdered as soon as we arrived there by radical Islamic Muslim jihadis who would murder us, whether we're Catholic or Jewish or whatever. Israel is, liberals like to say, diverse, multicultural society where Muslims and Jews and Christians and atheists live side by side and vote for one another and serve in the Knesset, of course. And Israel is the only place in the region where you're not hanged for being gay, unless, of course, you're in Bethlehem or the West Bank or in the Gaza, where the Islamists are in control. And what do you think about these, like Columbia University guys like Mahmoud Khalil, who are calling for global intifada and to wipe Israel off the map from the river to the sea? Let me just go with that one. Should Mahmoud Khalil be deported for inciting violence against the Jewish people, genocide against the Jewish people?
I mean, if that's a fact, like I don't have facts to that. I understand what they talking about. What they're talking about is, the war over there. That not necessarily like how you're describing it. If in fact if those are the facts, then yes. But like if they're really calling for like
then
what you're saying,
he should be deported. You say if those are the facts, then he should be deported.
That's right, and any court of any jury would see the same. Like if you present those facts that's really what was happening, then yes. If it's just he was there, speaking out against the war, that's another story because that's our First Amendment.
A jury,
right?
well, you don't get a jury trial for a deportation hearing. You get a bench hearing. You get a judge. But if he's on trial before a jury, then he's probably already committed crimes that land him before. And then a Democrat judge like Judge Dugan in Milwaukee might just sneak him out the back door. Should Judge Dugan be?
Hallway.
Sorry.
Should she? No, into the hallway. So should she have gotten arrested? No, my understanding is.
Well, he was there to be put on trial. The victims that he beat the bloody hell out of were sitting in the courtroom waiting for justice, and she denied them justice, didn't she?
I'm not sure if that's all the facts. My facts that were presented to me, Chris.
What, MSNBC or where did you get these facts?
So from the media, Chris, my understanding is
that's a pretty general. MSNBC, MS13 NBC, not exactly the Chris Plant show. Very different, right?
Well, thank you for allowing me to be the voice of the people here, Peter Filler, on your program, Chris. I greatly appreciate that opportunity. And there's only one Pete Filler, and that's me.
Well, that's what you say about this. There's only one Chris Plant. That what you say about that. Listen, Peter, I'm glad that you called in, and I'm happy to discuss these matters. You say, well, you don't have that information. There are some key pieces of information that you said you were not in possession of, and that's clear. That's quite clear. But you take care of that seat. Don't take that black seat away. That would be racist. And then, they might come firebomb your home like they did the Jewish governor of Pennsylvania, Josh Shapiro. They firebombed his home during Passover after the Seder dinner while he and his family were sleeping inside. You know who did that, Peter? Democrats did that. Not Muslim jihadis from overseas, mainstream Democrats. You shouldn't be a Democrat if you're Jewish.